Hi lovely humans. I have my tea, my cold tea. This is just gonna be a chat. Just a disclaimer to say that I'm gonna talk from my personal opinion, and debate on these topics is very welcome. Please, if you wanna confront your opinion, disagree or agree, or just bring your thoughts, you are very welcome to do so in the comments, of course, as long as you're respectful. Anyway, so I want to talk in this video about my relationship with alcohol and my thoughts on the drinking culture in France, the US and the UK. The reason for that is, so for those of you who don't know me, I am French and I've been brought up in France from French parents, and I've had the occasion of living for 6 months in the US and for 2 months in the UK. I kind of want to talk about relationship with alcohol as a child and a teenager, and the relationship with alcohol as a young adult, as an adult. And I'm kind of going to try to compare all of these countries and bring my perspective. So, first of all, let's talk about the drinking culture in formative years. If we talk about childhood, I don't think I can really talk about how children are brought up in the UK and the US regarding alcohol. I think it's interesting though to mention what it's like in France. Usually in France it's very normal for parents to give a sip of alcohol to their kids. And that's perfectly normal to have just your kid just put their lips in your glass of wine or champagne. That's just a normal thing to do because it's part of the culture that you have those type of traditional French alcohol for events, and you want your kids to grow up to have good taste in alcohol. Like, that's the thing, you want your child to get an education on the wine specifically. In my case, because I have one side of my family that's from the region of France where you produce champagne, they are from Reims, so champagne was a big part of every single family celebration. So I did have like a little bit of champagne from quite a young age. So you kind of get brought up in France with alcohol around you in a very casual way. Like, I've always heard my grandpa being like, you know, having a glass of wine every day is healthy, it's good for you. You have that kind of focus on drinking is like, one, you need to drink things that are good quality, good taste. Then from what I know, I feel like in high school, that's where you really start to drink, whatever country you're in, and that's where it starts to be interesting. Because, for example, I know that in the US, the legal age is 21, but from what I understand, lots of people start drinking before that. And in France, the legal age is 18, so when you're in high school, you're also younger than that. In the UK, same, like, everyone starts drinking before the legal age, is my point. But I feel like the US has a more stressed approach to drinking before you're legal. Like, I feel like, for example, when you have celebrities or YouTubers talking about alcohol and then be like, of course, if you're legal, if they're like, when they're American, then it's like, it's not your job to be in the law, in a way. There is that feeling that you're really not supposed to drink before 21. Like, everyone does it, but everyone's gonna pretend like it's really, really bad. And they card you a lot, like really try to enforce that limitation. And despite that, you have high school parties and people drinking after prom and college parties and all of that, but you're still supposed to pretend that you're not drinking before 21. I feel like in France, so you have the legal age of 18. So first, when you get into college, you're legal to drink in most cases. And then everyone kind of agrees that you will start drinking around 15 or 16. Like, it's kind of commonly accepted that high schoolers will drink some alcohol. And like, your parents know it, bars know it, supermarkets know it. Like, I have never been carded buying alcohol until I was like 19 or 20. So yeah, I'm sorry mom, I did buy alcohol before I was 18 and I was never carded. The first time I bought alcohol at a bar in Paris was at, again, sorry mom, 15 or 16, and no one asked to see my ID. Like, I was 15 or 16 and no one asked, and I was never checked. And like, I looked older than my age, but I feel like it's quite a common experience in France that you just can't buy alcohol under the legal age and no one really checks. There is a drinking culture in college in France. There is that aspect of, well, yay, college parties, let's drink a lot. But also, because it's been quite accepted that we start drinking before that, I feel like we know our limits better going into college. It's not what I feel is the case for lots of Americans, that type of like, okay, we are arriving into college, we have kind of been repressing the whole alcohol thing before that. Now that we're in college, we're just gonna go crazy and be very irresponsible with alcohol consumption. That could be a theory of like, because it's quite accepted to drink when you're younger in France, well, when you get to college you don't get too crazy about it. Well, Americans get more wild because they were more repressed. Like, that could be a good theory, but if the UK comes in, is like, hey, no. Because in the UK, from what I understand and from what I've heard from British people, you also start drinking around 15, like house parties and stuff, and you start drinking a lot, and then you go to college and you just don't stop. And there's that idea that you're just gonna get mental and you're just gonna get smashed and wasted. You're just gonna continue, like, you just start young and you just continue partying hard and you just continue drinking. So it kind of contradicts the point, because they don't have that taboo around, oh, you're not supposed to drink alcohol as a teenager, but they still drink a lot. I feel like, as a young adult French person, alcohol is not necessarily associated with parties. Having a drink with dinner with your parents, perfectly normal. Drinking is still a very real thing and people still drink a lot. But about that, binge drinking was one of those things that I was warned against when I was a teen, and I was never really, like, I was told that binge drinking was drinking a lot of alcohol in a short amount of time. But what's a lot? What's short? Because like, when I turned like 19 or 20, I realized that actually I had binge drank before, because when you go to a party with your friends, it's not like some people are binge drinking, it's like everyone's binge drinking by the definition of like science and like health standards. Everyone's binge drinking. You just have people who are binge drinking worse than other. That part applies to, I think, every country. You just, when you're a young person in Western culture, it's very normal to binge drink. You just don't realize even how much that is you're drinking, because it's like normal, everyone does it. I feel like we normalize amounts of alcohol that we shouldn't normalize. We do have an association with drinking and partying in France in certain colleges, but colleges in France don't have frats, don't have a lot of the social, like, we don't have campuses, so we don't have the life that can be on American campuses of that type of party. One thing that kind of struck me was when I was going out in London, you have the area around like Shoreditch, which is like very much like a young party neighborhood. You can see that at like 5-6 p.m. and everyone's already drunk. And there is like, I feel, a big clubbing culture in the UK of like just getting dressed up, pre-drinking hard, and then going to clubs and drinking hard. And like, I don't want to say we don't do that in France, because we do, but I feel like the amount of alcohol involved are higher in the UK. Like, people just go harder. Like, I've never seen anyone in France vomiting in the street. Like, I know that happens, but I've just never seen it because it's not common enough for me to have seen that. I feel like in the UK, you just go in you just go in an area in London where you have lots of clubs and bars and pubs, and you will see young people just smashed out of their mind very early on in the day. And all of that atmosphere of like normalizing big amounts of alcohol leads to something that I would call like a banalization of alcoholism that's almost conscious and voluntary. Because on one hand, I feel like in the US, UK, in France, it's all common that young people have this image of that they can't be alcoholics really. Like, the only real alcoholics are 50-year-old men drinking bad beer and wine. Like, there's this image that this is not about us. We're too young to be alcoholics. So there is that, but also, and that's something I've noticed, is like friends joking about someone in the friend group being alcoholic. and a lot of jokes around alcoholism. And you can also see that in meme culture and on the internet, lots of like joke about how you need alcohol and being an alcoholic and can't survive without alcohol. And like, for example, right now with the quarantine and lockdown, that's something you can see around a lot. And that seems crazy to me. Like, we've just normalized and we just joke around the concept of like an actual disease and addiction. It's kind of a defense mechanism for some people, like people who are in a difficult relationship with alcohol, and they will just project and go around and call other people alcoholics to like make fun of the term. And you call so many people alcoholic and you just use the term so casually to talk about so many things that are not alcoholism, to the point that the words doesn't mean anything. And then you have many people that I know in France calling themselves alcoholic jokingly. Like, it's a joke, I'm such an alcoholic. Because we've just deprived the word from all of its meaning by using it abusingly. But then when you try to call out someone for having an actual alcohol problem, they're just, I'm an alcoholic. And that's something I've seen in France, but I feel like that's also a thing in the US and the UK. And then as a working adult, you have that idea that, well, in the US it's going to be, well, it's normal, like you're a wife or you're a mom or you're a woman, it's like normal to have like your good glass of wine. It's sophisticated to have your glass of wine in the evening while you cook. And I'm not saying that having a glass of wine is a problem. I feel like I've seen a lot in the US that mentality of, oh, you're taking care of yourself, girl, especially with women for some reason, like have your wine, and encouraging and normalizing that as like your thing that relaxes you and that just puts you in a good mood and that you deserve for your hard work. And men having their beer after a long day, like, same. Just note that alcohol in these cases is very gendered, but beyond that, that's not the point of this video. We are normalizing as something that relaxes and that's a reward, alcohol, which is medically a depressant. I'm not saying that alcohol depresses everyone. Like, I've drunk alcohol and it was fun and I had fun, but I know I'm sounding judgmental right now, probably, and I don't want to pretend like I haven't drunk in my life and I haven't drunk too much. I'm kind of stepping back at this point in my life from all of that, and I am noticing stuff that are maybe very obvious, but that are problematic. Continue on like drinking as a young working adult. I've seen a bit of the pub culture in the UK, and there is that thing where after work people just go to the pub, and that's just like a normal, often like daily or multiple times a week occurrence, which I understand is like a social thing to like socialize with your co-workers or sometimes socialize with your friends. But what becomes kind of shocking is when you realize people do that every single day or multiple times a week. And sometimes it's not just one beer, it can be huge amounts of alcohol. Like, I have seen very professional looking people in London in the middle of the week smashed at like 5 p.m. Like, they got out of work, they went straight to the pub, they just got that, like, they just drank pints after pints, and now they're just completely drunk. And I've seen drunk people like in suits and ties and stuff in the metro, and it's like 6 p.m. I'm very judgmental right now. It's just quite shocking to me. And there is that whole like, yes, let's just go to the pub after work. And I didn't partake in that when I was in London, but I also had the experience of going to a pub with friends, and then I don't drink beer. I just don't like beer. Don't come for me, don't at me. I don't have a problem going to a pub with friends, and if there is a whiskey that I can have, then I'll have a whiskey. And if there's nothing that I can drink, well, I won't drink anything. Like, that's not a problem for me. If the whiskey is too expensive, or I'm not feeling like having one, or it's only beers, then people will have their beer and I will just not drink. And I don't have a problem with that. But I have noticed how people just gets kind of stressed, like, ooh, you're not drinking anything. It's like, no, I'm good. I don't have to drink. Like, the point for me is to like spend time with people. Yeah, sure, sometimes I used to have a drink during that, but it's not necessary. And So I drink, so I've never had really like the culture of, oh, you don't drink, why don't you drink? But those are the rare moments where I felt that way, where I felt the total like disbelief that I would actually be okay spending an evening with friends who are all drinking and I'm not. And like I can see them being like, and I wasn't pressured into drinking, but I felt that, why is she doing this? And I've heard many people in France and in the US telling me that when they don't drink, people just get weird and question their choice and like push them and kind of harass them to drink and take it as a personal attack. That says a lot. That says a lot that some people, when they see someone else not drink, have such a strong reaction. It's like you are so used to drinking alcohol that you can't conceive someone not wanting to drink. I've even heard in the UK some people tell me that it was a problem for them when they wanted to date because they don't drink for whatever reason, personal reason, and they get rejected by people with dating solely on the basis that they don't drink. So yeah, that pub culture in the UK kind of disturbs me. In France, there is also kind of an equivalent. That's not everyone. That's like, I feel like in certain social circles, I have observed that you'll have young working people, like people who just entered the workforce, and they have that feeling of like, oh, I'm an adult now. So that means, oh, I'm gonna have after work drinks. Oh, I'm gonna, whenever I go for dinner with friends, oh, I'm gonna have alcohol. Because like, I'm an adult, and there is that element of like, oh, alcohol as a sign of like this adult status. Having an image of an adult is someone who drinks. An adult is someone who after works go with co-workers to do this. Sorry if the angle is a bit different. I had to stop for a second and for a bit because I had been filming for a while and I had a call with a friend. So overall, can take from this is that there is, I feel, many similarities between the way the drinking culture in the US, the UK and in France. There are very common traits. I feel like you have differences in the details and how you end up approaching alcohol in specific circumstances. But I feel like overall we do have this societal pressure to drink and to drink quite a bit. And after years, I just have been reflecting a bit on alcohol and checking myself to make sure that I don't have a problem with that. Because as I said, as I kind of implied, I have seen many people around my age develop, I wouldn't say alcoholism, but just like problems with alcohol and tendency to drink a lot more and a lot more often than reasonable. Some of them have admitted that they have a problem, some of them haven't, but I just saw that all around me and that made me question what I considered to be normal. And I feel like that's a good thing in general. It's good at one point to like examine your own relationship with alcohol, and if you rely on it or if you find it like absolutely necessary to do a certain social thing. I just want to encourage everyone to think critically about how you handle alcohol, how your family handles alcohol, how your culture tells you to behave around alcohol. That's all. Yes, that was a long chat, but I hope you found it interesting. Again, like, that's a video where I would really be so interested in hearing your opinions. Whether you're from the US, the UK, France, or another country, wherever you're from, I'd be very curious to hear what's your relationship with alcohol. What was your relationship with alcohol growing up? What was the message that you saw? What was the representation of alcohol in the media where you are? How it has influenced you? And again, you're fully free to disagree or to agree. And if you want to hear more people's thoughts on the topic, I will leave a couple of videos from British and Irish YouTubers mostly, I think, in the description to just continue the conversation in a way. Thank you for watching and follow me on social media if you'd like, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. Bye!